Jalen is playing smart football. He gets out of bounds. He slides down. He takes what the defense is giving him. I thought the game the other night, I thought he really was masterful. Of course, everybody was wide open a lot too. But I thought he played very, very masterful football.
All right. I'm going to do this before I bring Joe Theismann on here. And I want to tell you guys. So Carson Wentz is throwing the ball at 65.5 completion percentage. He's got 650 passing yards, which is 325 in the first two games. He's number 2 in the NFL. He's got 7 touchdown passes to 3 interceptions. And I got to think this guy may be the best quarterback Washington has had since Joe's days, or maybe even a pre-Hurt RG3. Let's bring in the former MVP and our friend Joe Theismann. Joe, hey, before
First
we
of
go
all,
here, though.
Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Am I right when I hear that there's a 30 for 30 that you guys have been working on with Lawrence Taylor?
Actually, we just did the NFL Network last Friday night just did a football life on me. And I am totally flattered and honored that they did that.
Wow, man. I can't wait to watch. Hey, Joe, I'll tell you what Lawrence has told me about you. And he's said this to me numerous times. I'm sitting around down in South Florida with him. And I go, I go, man, you and Theismann must never talk. He goes, are you kidding me? There's nobody I have more respect for in my life than Joe Theismann. He's one of the toughest competitors. He always congratulated me after I go, no, he didn't. He goes, okay, maybe not.
Not all the time.
All right, Joe, let's get into this 1-1 Washington Commander team here. Give me your assessment so far on what you've seen with the first 2 weeks of the season.
I think offensively, the football team has a great foundation to work from. Brian Robinson hopefully will be back soon, which will really complement Antonio Gibson. And J.D. McKissick really hasn't played a lot of football because Antonio is able to do a lot of things very well. You know, Antonio basically had lost his job until Brian wound up getting shot. And then all of a sudden now he's protected the football. He's an integral part of the passing game. Logan Thomas is back. Our 3 wide receivers, you know, I would put them in the top maybe 10 in the league or better as a group. Jahan's been unbelievable. Terry is, you know, he's just him. And then Curtis Samuel has really come back and showed why Washington went for him a year ago, even though he didn't play very much. So the wide receiving core is solid. The line has been good. Carson's played a lot of good football. You have 1 or 2 bad games and people are just going to harp on it. He understands what he needs to do. Defensively, again, communication looks like it's a little bit of an issue in certain spots. I think they have to stop the run, which is going to be paramount against Philadelphia coming into this game. And I think a lot of the burden's going to fall on the defensive side of the football. But offensively, they've got to figure out a way to get through the first quarter and a half of a football game without it becoming a game of catch-up. That's the bottom line.
You know, and Joe, I watched that first half. It was a microcosm of each, like 2 different games. I mean, you know, they were nowhere in the first half. They came back when they stopped the pressure. I mean, Wentz was 21 of 29 for 278 and 2 touchdowns in the second half. And once you gave him opportunity to throw the ball, he brought them back into it. So, again, your assessment on how you think Carson's played so far.
I think Carson's played good, smart, solid football. He's made key plays. When he's had opportunities down the field, he's hit them. Now, that hasn't always been the case there in Washington. And by the way, I think the number is, since I got hurt in 85, there have been 40 different starting quarterbacks in Washington.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's totally nuts. Well, since Ron Rivera has been the coach in 3 years, there's been 7 different starting quarterbacks to put things in perspective. But I think Carson is playing really solid, smart football. He's not trying to do too much. And then last week he showed basically against Detroit that he can run a little bit too, which I wouldn't recommend. But, you know, when he saw the opportunity to make some plays with his legs, he did. So he's playing the kind of football you want a quarterback to play. If the opportunity is there to get the ball down the field, take advantage of it. If you have a chance to be able to pick up some yards with your legs, do that. And then protect the football, which is paramount. And I think he's done all 3 of those things quite well, Dan.
You know what, Joe, I would say this to you too. I was talking to Doc yesterday, Doc Walker,
Yeah.
and he goes, they're buying into him. Joe, you know this more than anybody. To be able to motivate men, you got to stand in that pocket and you got to take hits. We are just talking about you and those great rivalries that you had against those Giant teams and Lawrence Taylor. And you've got to have courage to stand in there, man. So your teammates look at you. When they pick you up, you're picking them up. The whole thing, you buy into it. It seems to me that it's almost like those two mishaps that he had in Philly and in Indy. Look how Indy's playing now without him. They're 0-2.
I mean, and don't look good, by the way.
Yeah, right. And I mean, Joe, do you see a different guy than what you've heard that's in that locker room now with Carson Wentz?
Having spent a little bit of time around Carson, he has a wonderful, even-keeled personality. He's level. He's very level. He doesn't go high. He doesn't go low. I think that the 2 touchdown passes that he threw against Jacksonville did an awful lot for him and the confidence of the football team in him after the interceptions. When the interception he threw, he was late on. The other one, I just think the Walker kid just made an unbelievable play on a screen. If you haven't played the position, people try and analyze it and criticize it. And, I hear running backs criticize it and offensive linemen criticize it and all kinds of different people analyzing that particular interception. It was just a great defensive play. It was smart. And we see a lot of these screens now. They're not really long screens. They're really short screens where they try and get the people out in front. But he bounced back. And that spoke volumes in my mind to the football team and said, look, I'm never going to quit on you. No matter how tough it gets, no matter how dire the situation looks, I'm going to be the guy that's going to keep on firing away. And I think that's a rallying cry for this football team. But they really, really need to. You can't let Philadelphia take off to a 14-zip start early. You really need to play early in the game and late in the game. We haven't had many problems in the second half. The problem is we've been down so much. So from my perspective, they have to come out and hold their own early in this football game to sort of get the momentum and the confidence of the crowd going.
Joe, you moved around in the pocket a lot, and you were considered a mobile quarterback. I mean, you're not going to run for 700 yards, but you're going to find passing lanes in the pocket and move the pocket around a little bit to create space for you. Give me your assessment so far on what you see with Jalen Hurts and the development from a year ago to where you've seen him so far, maybe in limited time, maybe that Monday night game too. I thought he was spectacular, but just your assessment. Can you win with that style of quarterback? Can you win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts, in your opinion?
I think, so much of it, and you, Danny, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. The quarterback position is the single most dependent position on the field. Adding Brown to the wide receiving core was incredible. Their offensive line is solid and good. Their defense is playing with great football. So, it's just unbelievable. So, they have elements. They have corners who can take away your guys. They have a line that can bring pressure. They have linebackers that can run on the defensive side. They got a solid offensive line, really solid running game to work off of. And the thing about Jalen that I said this in the beginning of the year, I think you and I talked, the guys that I was most curious about in this season was going to be Jalen Hurts and Tua down in Miami, because both of those teams added players around the position. Now, what were they going to do? And both of them have responded the way I think their teams had hoped they would respond. But I've liked the way Jalen, from Alabama to Oklahoma to his rookie season, to having a chance to split time, then all of a sudden play a little bit. What I see is constant growth. And that's really what you look for in the quarterback position. Are you growing in the position? Are you protecting the ball? Are you protecting yourself? Classic example. Zach Wilson's going to miss 4 weeks of the regular season. It was the first preseason game. He's about 5 yards from the sideline, and instead of running out of bounds, protecting himself, he plants his foot, messes it up, goes inside, and he's gone. No reason whatsoever in a preseason game or any game at the quarterback position to try and pick up yards in the first quarter or second quarter. Unless it's nothing left. It's the fourth quarter. We're down to our last play. Then you have to do what you got to do. So his growth has been stunted. Jalen is playing smart football. He gets out of bounds. He slides down. He takes what the defense is giving him. I thought the game the other night, I thought he really was masterful. Of course, everybody was wide open a lot too. But I thought he played very, very masterful football. And it's fun, even though the Eagles are in the division with Washington, it's fun watching a young man like this grow. I think it's exciting to be able to see young guys develop and each week get better. And that's where you get that team has a ton of confidence in them. They really do.
You know, Joe, I think you were, and your football team under Coach Gibbs gives everybody an understanding of what the quarterback position is. You couldn't have had three more different styles of quarterback that won those Super Bowls with you, with Rippon, and with Doug Williams. And to me, do you think, Joe, where I'm going with it is, do you think today we're so fast to try to compare to Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes? Who does he remind you of? I mean, don't you think that a quarterback, Joe, has their own blueprint on how they win games? And maybe Jalen has a different style of a blueprint on how he's going to go and approach on winning ball games. Is that fair?
Dan, you are so right. I think each quarterback brings a certain skill set to the position. You know, Patrick Mahomes is I've said this before, Patrick's like a video game. I mean, he has the ability to do things. He has the ability to move around. He throws the ball from different angles, and he completes it. It isn't for show. He knows what he can do. Aaron Rodgers knows what he can do. I mean, you look at the throwing styles of different people in this league. Tua has a different style. Jalen has a different style. Matt Ryan has a different style. Carson has a different style. Everybody has a different way of getting the ball from point A to point B. And I think you have to take a look at what that player does and what are their strengths. I think in Jalen's case, I think mobility, certainly a part of the offense. Carson would not be something that I would list on a top three as far as, okay, we're going to move him a lot. No, you're going to move Jalen. And you know, Lamar Jackson, once again, another unique individual who fits into the offense that they want to run. And that meltdown that they had, that was an offense. You know, that was an entire team meltdown is really what it was when Baltimore played Miami. And credit to it. And you know, I'd love to be able to throw to wide receivers, a wide receiver like Tyreek Hill, who's 30 yards behind a defensive back who decided not to move.
I've never seen Baltimore play.
I was
stunned. I was stunned, Joe.
And then, you know, here's something that I've really figured out, I think. We have 17 games. Now, you hear all the statistics. Well, if you go 0-2, your chances of making the playoffs are yah. Bottom line is, that was when it was 16 games.
Right.
So now what you basically do is, and people can't get away from this old time stuff. It's like, who's the greatest player of all time? Well, some guys played in 14 games. Some guys played in 16. Some played in 17. Quarterbacks, if they don't get near 5,000 yards, they're not really playing the position in an offense that takes advantage of their skill set today. But the first two preseason games are really glorified. I should say, the first two regular season games are glorified preseason games, protecting the football, Renfro with the Raiders, decisions by the coaches using timeouts, Nathaniel Hackett with Denver. They don't do that in the preseason. All the preseason it's an evaluation process of the guys that you want to make your football team. Regular season is conditioning. Why do you think so many teams are scoring so well in the second half of games? Because everybody runs out of gas.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened to Detroit last week when they were playing Washington. The guy had 3 sacks, and Detroit was out of gas in the second half.
How about Miami?
Yeah, Miami, exactly.
I mean, you can look at different games and understand that those games really are conditioning games.
Yeah.
Conditioning for the coaches, conditioning for the players, trying to figure out who does what well. Unless you're the Buffalo Bills, I watched them play one series in the preseason. And what I saw in that one series is exactly what I've seen in 2 football games.
Absolutely. Joe, a couple last questions here for the Washington team. Ron Rivera, give me your assessment on how you think he's handled the team since he's been the head football coach. And do you think the one thing that you always want to look at sometimes, especially when you're trying to create a new environment and you're trying to create a winning environment, are they getting better? You want to know if a team is getting better and you're seeing that team evolve into being better with better personnel around it. Are they getting better under Ron Rivera?
I think they are. I think this is the 3rd year. This is Ron's football team. This is the year he puts his stamp on it. They feel like they have a quarterback who can do the things that they want to do. I still think Taylor Heineke can play somewhere in this league as a starter. Last year, it was all new to him. He really was like a rookie quarterback, and I think he got tired. Man, hey, Dan, it's 17 games.
Oh, I agree.
This is going to be a long, long season, I'll tell you. But you look at the wide receiving core from a personnel standpoint, the defensive line, they've invested a lot in those. Chase Young hopefully comes back in the next couple of weeks and gives them a little more depth and a little more pop in the front. The linebacking core, Jamin Davis in a growing process. It's a very young football team. What scares me a little bit are some of the guys they signed in the back end that just really have to step up now. They have to play better football in the back end. But I think Ron has got this football team going in the direction that he wants it to go in. Now the question is to be able to translate it out on the field. And I've said this 1,000 times to Sunday. It's not a question it isn't a question of, is it the system that helps the players win, or is it the players that help the system? It's a combination of both. But if you don't have players, and if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you just cannot be successful. I mean, it's a bottom line. Can't be successful unless you have somebody that's able to pull the trigger.
Joe, you bring a great point up about Tyler Heineke, and I never thought about it until what you just said, that if you look at the NFC East, they may have the best collection of backup quarterbacks of any division in the league. Tyrod Taylor in New York. Right. I mean, you got Gardner Minshew with the Eagles. You got Tyler Heineke. Now you're seeing this Cooper Rush kid in Dallas. I mean, Joe, It just shows you that there's players out there, when they given their opportunity to go out there and play, that there's some really fine ball players that are these backup guys. I don't know if I've ever seen – look at Nick Foles in Indy. I mean, there's a lot of these guys throughout the league right now that the quarterback position, to me, looks like it's just getting better and better every year.
And it is getting deeper. And you've got Mitchell Trubisky gets a chance tonight to continue to grow in the position. Marcus Mariota continuing to get better.
Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett. Geno Smith in Seattle.
Right.
These are all they're lifers. And by the way, you mentioned the Dallas Cowboys and Lawrence Taylor earlier. There hasn't been a defensive player that played the linebacker position like Lawrence Taylor in this game. People want to sort of compare people to him. Parsons, to me, is as close to dominating a football game as Lawrence Taylor was in his heyday.
Wow, Joe.
I'll tell you,
Joe, you're not putting him in that league.
Absolutely. To me, when you look at what his skill set is, his tenacity, his power, his strength, his speed, and real quick, when we used to put up defenses against our offense as we got ready for a meeting, V's are like defensive linemen, B's are backers, C's are corners, S's are safeties. We used to have a big number 56 with a circle around it. I think every offensive team better put an 11 up there with a circle around it and figure out where he is. Because if you don't know where he is in a very short period of time, he's going to make your life miserable. The kid's that good.
Joe, you think he's in the room with, like, you're not, I'm obviously not there yet, but you think he's in the room? Because I agree. Because look, when I played during that time, we used to just put the film on and we're watching, and it just looked like he was in a different speed. And I've never seen a person, and I love Reggie White to death, but I've never seen a guy transform a position, dominate a football game like Lawrence Taylor, and that includes Jerry Rice. I've never seen anything like it. And you think he's in that conversation, Micah Parsons?
I'll tell you, if he's not in the room, he's at the door.
Wow, Joe.
I've just watching him play last year with his skill set, watching him play this year, and really he dominates that defensive line. I mean, he really does. He's the pilot light that gets everything going for them. And you can't block him with a back. That's insane. And if you try and chip him, you're taking somebody out of your passing game. And he can push 300-pounders back into somebody's face. No, the kid's real. I mean, I'm talking for real.
Do you think Dallas is in trouble, though, with all the injuries, Dak's injury, And by the way, too, your assessment on Dak. I mean, I'm watching Jalen improve. I'm kind of watching. I mean, I didn't really think Dak played that well prior to him getting injured. And this kid Rush seems like he has a better connection with CeeDee Lamb a little bit. And Joe, I look, the backup quarterback is always the best, and everyone roots for him. And I get it, when things aren't going well. But just your assessment real quick on Dallas.
Too early to judge anything,
Okay.
Dan. I think in the case of Dak, one of the things, and I mentioned this about Zach Wilson, you can't lose time. Dak lost a year, basically, with the leg, and now he's losing time with the thumb. You can't start 6 or 7 games and then lose 8 or 9. I mean, you can't find any continuity, especially with some of the changes that they've made offensively in Dallas. I believe that they'll want to run the football. Pollard's a heck of a back.
He is.
Zeke's looking like he's getting his legs back. He's looking like the Zeke of old a little bit. But I think, Dak can play really solid football. Let's face it. Let's be true and honest about the Dallas Cowboys. Most talented team and most undisciplined team in football.
Always lead the NFL in penalties.
I mean, I don't care what you do, no matter who you are as a football team. If you can't find some kind of sense of discipline, you're just going to keep on giving opportunities away to be able to put teams away, to be able to compete at a level you need to. And to me, it's been, and again, we see it again this year. The penalties again have really, I think, created issues for that football team. They've got talent in a lot of different places. They've let some of it go. They've added some of it. But the discipline aspect when it comes to penalties has been their Achilles heel for this early part of this year and all of last year.
Well, I can't wait to watch A Football Life of Joe Theismann. Joe, you know what? And what's crazy about your whole thing was a Notre Dame star. Then all of a sudden, how humbled must that have been? But you wanted to play ball, man. You go to Canada, then you get an opportunity to come to Washington. I mean, Joe, your hunger kept it going for you to eventually win a Most Valuable Player award. I mean, that's some story, Joe. I mean, you didn't come in on a chariot. As Doc Walker says, you didn't come in on a chariot. You came in a Yugo.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a stick shift, by the way.
Joe, thank you so much, my friend.
Dan, thanks for having me. Always good to catch up with you. Take care.
You bet. The great and legendary Joe Theismann. Thank you so much, man. I love talking to Joe. God, what a great football player, too. Absolutely, too, man. Leading his football team to a Most Valuable Player award. Also, our good friends at Morgan & Morgan, where the fee is free. If you're hurt or injured on the job, one of the most important things that you could possibly do is get that law firm for you to be able to represent you and your family. For the past 30 years, Morgan & Morgan has collected over $13.5 billion for their clients. They're the biggest law firm in the country, and they're ready to do battle for you. Understand this, too. They're not going to look at a case and go, oh, it's just a fender bender. No case is too small. No case is too big. Call them at 800-512-1600. That's 800-512-1600. The call is free. The consultation's free. And when you call Morgan & Morgan, you tell them Big Sil sent you.
When choosing a lawyer for your injury case, you may ask, does the size of the law firm matter? Well, of course it does. The insurance company, they're huge with unlimited resources. And whether your case is big or small, they're built to bully you out of the money you're owed. But here's the good news. We're big too, the biggest actually, and we're built to fight to make them pay for all that was taken from you. Size is our strength. There's only one Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.